think this last Friday was the first time where I thought it actually felt like football weather.
Just a little bit, yeah. Once that sun went down, then you're kind of reaching for that jacket a little before kickoff.
It was a little nippy out in La Center, but hey, that's what it's all about. And when the weather gets cold, the action heats up, and we have a lot to talk about here as we enter really almost the midseason of the high school football season. We're ready to talk about it again on Varsity360, coming to you from the First Pacific Financial Studio, downtown Vancouver. Thanks to them. And we're going to play a little game today. Is there room on the bandwagon, or are you saying don't panic yet with a couple of these teams? Because I think we've seen a few early season surprises. We've seen a few teams that I think we would see a little bit more from. But this is sort of just to kind of take the pulse here at almost the midseason point of where a couple of these programs are.
Yeah, basically week 5 we like to call kind of that midway point. You're right, a week away. But yeah, through September, this is kind of one of the more wacky first 4 weeks that I've seen in quite some time. So there's been some surprising results on both the wins and the loss columns. But yeah, I'm excited to play this game all in or don't panic yet.
Well, I think, we have been surprised by a few of the success stories. And who would have thought that one of the, or maybe the only undefeated team in the area, Heritage,
yes.
The Heritage Timberwolves. Is there room on that bandwagon? Are you all in on the Heritage Timberwolves?
There is room on the bandwagon, and I'm sure Kevin Peterson, now in his second season, would gladly give up the passenger seat for those who want to be on that bandwagon. First 4-0 start in school history, Heritage opening in 1999. I would say they're probably heavily favored against this Shelton team, possibly to go 5-0. This is the year for Heritage if they want to sneak in and get one of those 3 postseason bursts coming out of the 3A Greater St. Helens League. Everything that Coach Peterson has talked about really up until now is really coming to fruition. Coaches all the time talk about culture, talk about kids buying in. They now have that and then some. They've got the numbers to field multiple teams. It's been quite a while since Heritage has had this strength when it comes to just depth and numbers. So I think this is it. So if you're not on that white and purple bandwagon, get on quickly, because I think good things are going to happen come the second half of the season for Heritage.
Well, you think about the essentials that you need to have for success in high school football, and you talked about it, numbers. That's a huge thing. If you don't have numbers, a couple of injuries or just no depth of positions can really derail a team. But in addition to numbers, then talent at the skill positions to really put the stress on a defense.
No, absolutely. You said it. And I think, if you were to kind of step back a bit, kind of look 30,000 feet above and looking down at this, some people might question Heritage's opponents' win-loss record. So the 4 opponents they've beaten are a combined 4-12 through September. So I think, again, as that calendar flips in November and they start Greater St. Helens League play, we're going to learn a little bit more about Heritage and if they're for real or not. But as of right now, I'm saying, yes, they're for real. Jump on that bandwagon right now.
All right, go see them at Mackenzie Stadium. They're part of I think they're the late night doubleheader, so they got the prime time lights on Friday night out there. All right, another team that started fast, maybe to a few people's surprise, Battleground of the 8 home games at District Stadium this year, but they kind of stubbed their toe a little bit this last Saturday, a game that they probably feel like they should have won to Cascade Christian, a one where they led by 13 points in the fourth quarter, eventually lost in overtime. But prior to that, Battleground was really turning some heads, I think, primarily on their defensive side.
I agree with you. Essentially, Battleground pulled in Oregon State, having a 23-10 lead in the fourth quarter and kind of losing that in overtime. But I also am going all in on Battleground. I think this is one of the better teams that Battleground has had really over the last 12 to 15 years. I think those Gunnar Talkington teams are probably at the top of everyone's lists. I'm not so certain they're better than the team from 2 years ago that reached Week 10, eventually losing to Sumner, but I think they're right there. So if that 2013 team is number 2, I would put them at number 3 right now. But I think what impressed me most, even from Saturday, taking away from that loss, is the way that they came back and a way they took a commanding 23-10 lead after falling behind for a good portion of that first half. So Cascade Christian is probably one of the top 5 to 6 teams in Class 1A, a team that we could see a number of our Trico teams playing in the postseason should they make a deep postseason run. So don't take anything away from this loss, seeing them fall to 3-1. So I think they're going to be just fine now, and having all that home schedule, that's going to pay the bills for the rest of this 25-26 school year for the ASB funds.
Well, and I think one element and one player that I think is I've had the opportunity to see Battleground multiple times already this season. And one player who's really impressing me is their senior quarterback, Ethan Adams. And I talked to Coach Mike Woodward about him after the big win over rival Prairie. And I said, what he's doing is really letting the game come to him. He's one of these dual threat quarterbacks that, I think he's averaging about 100 yards, over 100 yards rushing per game. But against Prairie, he only completed, I think, 5 or 6 passes, but 3 of those were for touchdowns. And so it's not like he feels like he needs to force the ball through the air. When his guy is open, he's finding him and using, doing enough passing to keep the defense honest. But then when he's not afraid to tuck and run. And when you mix in some of their other running backs, whether it's like Xavier Ortegon and Miles Scove, and then you put a physical defense behind that, that's a recipe to win games.
Yeah, I feel like we've been talking about Ethan Adams now we have now for 4 years. I remember Coach Mike Woodward was really high on him as a 9th grader, and even that sophomore campaign leading them eventually to the Week 10 state preliminary round. But yeah, Ethan Adams, I unfortunately haven't seen him this year, but I did see him last season before he got hurt, just before the start of Greater St. Helens League play. And I'm so impressed with his poise and maturity and the way he can extend plays. He's a really, really athletic quarterback, one of the best in the area, one of the most experienced in the area. So you don't see kind of the combinations that he has in a quarterback very often. So it's amazing to see that, we have been talking about him for 4 years now.
Well, and Woody talked about, when I was asking him about just his game management, he said there was a moment when he was younger that he had to pull his quarterback aside and say, dude, if I'm never taking you to Vegas because you're taking too many risks. So he said he's completely put that, behind him, and now he's making good decisions. And if it's not there, he's not forcing it. He's just taking what the defense gives him, and that's a real mark of maturity.
Yeah, I think we're going to find out really these next couple weeks before GSHL 4A play begins, just if Battleground can take that next step and possibly fight for, again, there's only one of 2 playoff spots out of the 4A Greater St. Helens League this year. So can they muster enough to get one of those 2 berths? So they open play with Camas, hosting Camas. So these next couple weeks, I think, are going to be key, though, for BG.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to the 3A Greater St. Helens League and talk about a team that kind of got humbled a little bit by Battleground, and that's Prairie. Prairie, I think, came in. They were talking. Junior Miller was talking about how this might be a team that rivals the 2019 team that won the 3A Greater St. Helens League, and then they lose by a lot to the rival Battleground. But you can never count the Falcons out because they responded and won a dramatic game over Union this last week by 1 point against a much improved Union team. Where are you on Prairie? Is there room to get back on that bandwagon, knowing that that loss to Battleground might end up being sort of an aberration?
I'm not sure I ever got off the Prairie bandwagon, to be honest. So I think I would peg them the second best team in the 3A Greater St. Helens League. Now, I know some Falcon fans are going to be upset with that. How come you aren't picking us first right now? But let me tell you something. That Week 7 game with Evergreen is going to be monster. So that's a game that I'm already excited about, and we're still really 2 weeks, 3 weeks away from that one. But yeah, Devin Vishu, what a tremendous campaign that he's had. He really stepped onto that stage last year as a junior, but the way he's able to extend plays and just scramble and find wide open guys, I feel like Tommy Vick is open every other possession for this offense. So yeah, there's a lot to like about Prairie, and no question I see them in the postseason hands down.
Nice. Talk about Evergreen. I mean, Evergreen's kind of puzzled me a little bit because they've lost to some really good teams, including a team from Texas, which we know they kind of play a different brand of ball down there, even though it's a small private school. They came up here to the Northwest and won last week over Evergreen. Evergreen has taken care of business against a North Thurston team they really should have, were favored against, but then lose to Puyallup, a very good 4A team, and then started that season, of course, with a controversial win over Union. Where do you think the Plainsmen stand, and is it time where we start to wonder? It's like, okay, where's this Evergreen team that we thought, I think still rightfully pegged as the favorite in the 3A St. Helens League?
It's probably no surprise, honestly. I kind of saw them going 2-2 through the month of September. That Puyallup team you mentioned, that's probably a 4A state semifinalist right there. A team that also handed it to Skyview earlier in the month as well. So it's really no surprise. I think it's going to take a little bit of time to kind of get that momentum. They play Kelso this week on the road. So anytime you go up to Calais County, you're basically down a touchdown before you get off the bus. But again, I think when you play a Kelso team, they're always going to be physical. Hands down, year in and year out, that's always going to be a physical team facing Kelso. So I think this game right here, Friday night, will say a lot as far as kind of what we're going to see from Evergreen moving forward. But I don't panic by any means.
Yeah. Well, a team we haven't seen yet for no fault of our own, it's just that they played basically their entire season on the road so far, has been Skyview. And we knew going into the season that Skyview would be using the first half of the season going on the road against largely really good teams to kind of, do trial by fire. And while Skyview hasn't won yet, I think they've tried to use this part of the season to kind of figure some things out, figure out who they are. But yet the Storm have not won. Is it time to panic if you're a Storm fan?
Do you see a panic button anywhere?
No,
there's no panicking whatsoever. No, you said it. I have not seen as tough of a schedule, I don't think ever, in my now 18 years doing this, is with Skyview. It is just unbelievable. Going up to Graham-Kapowson, possibly a state semifinalists, if not bigger. I mentioned Puyallup earlier. That could be maybe a state championship contender as well, coming out of the South Puget Sound League. Playing a Decatur team this Friday, that's going to be no easy task as well. And playing a team week 1 over in Idaho that probably will win the Idaho 5A state championship. Look, this is kind of the big mystery right now with Skyview. You're right. They haven't played a game right now that we've seen in the 360 area code. So it's hard to gauge. But right now, no, don't hit that panic button because they are playing the toughest schedule that anyone would. It's going to be hard pressed to find anyone who would not agree that Skyview has had the toughest schedule of anyone around here, much less the state as well. So is it time to hit the panic button? No, not at all. So they play a Decatur team, a very good Decatur team that won its first league title last year in school history, their first home game finally at Kiggins Bowl before starting Greater St. Helens League play in week 7. But I think what we've seen these first 4 or 5 weeks is going to set Skyview up for success once again. Only 3 league games to go, the week 7, 8, and 9. So it's very easy to sneak in there and get one of those 2 playoff spots for week 10. So don't hit that panic button by any means. Skyview is just fine. So everyone just needs to take a chill pill right now.
All right. And I feel like we need to talk about Camas too, because Camas, obviously, they've got the brightest light on them, being a big program that made it to the state semifinals and played a marquee game that got a lot of attention last week against former legendary coach John Eagle, but John Eagle, kind of his Westland team is a juggernaut and shut out the Papermakers. This is a Camas team that was coming off a good win over Lincoln of Tacoma, but then had lost to a good Mount Tahoma team. So I don't feel like I have a good gauge about just where Camas is. Are they, are you saying buy them while they're a little bit low, or are there some concerns for the Papermakers?
No concerns at all. So that was a very humbling defeat to Westland, 41-0. First time in 21 years that Camas has been shut out. And this is the first time in the Washington running clock which was implemented in 2009, that Camas was running clocks. So in Oregon, it's actually a couple years ago, they lowered the threshold, the point threshold to 35. So it's a result that you just don't see very often. So they're 2-2 going into October. Look, there was a lot of turnover. You look at that senior class that played for the state championship last year, dudes all over the field, both on offense and defense. So it's still going to take a lot of time. I think the defense is really going to still be that focal point. Zuko Lopez, who missed the first 2 weeks, who originally moved to Hawaii, is now back. And so he's starting to get a little bit of a rhythm and a little bit of that routine. Dan Kilty is having him play on that defensive line spot since that linebacking core is pretty much set. And don't be surprised if he also starts at that offensive guard position to be a kind of that two-way disruptor up front. So, I think they're going to be fine. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're not going to lose another regular season game. Now, they do have a very, very good and tough opponent with Coeur d'Alene coming in. And side note, their starting quarterback, Tyson Ruggiero, transferred from the other high school in Coeur d'Alene, Lake City. And I remember chatting with him during the 7-on-7 offseason in July. I was just like, hey, what's that rivalry between CDA and Lake City like? He's like, yeah, these guys all know me. And so I know he's got that this Friday's game definitely circled on that calendar. So it should be a good one. It should be a very tough and physical game, much like Lincoln was for them. But yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and say Camas will not lose another regular season game.
Well, I think it was always going to be a work in progress for Camas this season because of having a new starting quarterback. It's last year you knew what you were getting in Jake Davidson, and that you knew someone that all of they had been working. It was a multi-year project that culminated with that trip to the state championship game. Anytime you bring in a new quarterback, learning the new system, that's you can do all you want in summer ball, but until you get real live action in fall, there's always going to be a learning curve.
It is. And Tyson Ruggiero came in just before spring break last offseason, but Adam Matheson's offense is very complex and very difficult to master. And I think Tyson's done a really, really good job, given he's only been in the system for a very few short months. So basically, take away the result from last Friday. West Lynn outgained in total offense by Camas 444 to 88. And in fact, Tyson was 1 of 8 passing for -2 yards by the time it was 41-0. So just flush that result, flush that performance down. They played a decent game, even though on the scoreboard it looks a little deceiving. So no, they're absolutely fine. Just like Skyview, no panic button necessary.
All right. Well, one of the things I appreciate about you, Meg, not only your football knowledge and just how wired in you are, and it's that you're willing to tell it how it is. So I think we want to start, when we have you on Varsity 360, I want to start a new segment called Brutally Honest with Meg. And it allows you to kind of dish on something you see, opine, share a point of view. What do you want to talk about today?
Yeah, so first Brutally Honest segment of the year. I'm going to go back to my game that I was at last Friday, Woodland topping Columbia River 17-14 on Rivers homecoming night. Now, we all know that Dwayne Patterson runs the wing T, and I think there's been huge gains with this offense, especially that offensive line that allows River to really run the wing T well. However, Columbia River needs to utilize standout tight end Greg Blau just a little bit more. He had a career high 109 yards on 4 catches, I think 6 targets total, possibly 7. But this kid had a monster first half, especially that River led 7-3. And there were so many times in the game where I was wondering, when are they going to go to Greg Blau again? When are they going to go to Greg Blau? And so as great as this wing T offense is, and he's a tremendous blocking tight end, but he's got the speed of receiver. He's got the size advantage 9 times out of 10. He's just got the sure hands of a receiver and a total mismatch just size-wise. And so I'm waiting for that next step in Rivers' offensive momentum and gain to be like, let's go to Greg Blau a little bit more. So that is my brutally honest take going into October here.
Well, because he's about, 6'3", 230, 225?
Yeah.
I know he's getting some college looks to play tight end. But so often, especially in Class 2A football, it comes down to just who's the bigger dude? Who's the who has the physical advantage to go up and get the ball or run over somebody? And so when you've got an ace in the hole like that, it seems like that's a weapon that you'd be happy to use for sure.
No, absolutely, and especially in the 2A ranks locally, there aren't many tight ends to speak of. So again, you're someone like Cole Pearson, the starting quarterback for River, and you've got an ace out there who, again, I think 9 times out of 10 is going to win those 50-50 balls and whatnot. So utilize Greg Blau more than just great blocking on the edge. So I think in college he is going to take that next step and possibly be a defensive end. But for right now, when you're 6'3", 220, 225, utilize the strength that you have on that edge.
For sure. And it seems like everyone in the 2A Greater St. Helens League, all the coaches preseason were like, we're going back to the run. We're committing to the run, and we're doing that. It's like, but there still is a role for, a guy that can go up and snag a ball out of the air.
Absolutely. No question.
All right. Well, great to catch up with you, Meg. Thanks for tuning in to Varsity 360. We can't wait to see you out at the field this Friday. Come up and say hi, and we'll see you next time.